Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Breakfast of Humanitarians. My name is Bethany Jones, and I'm a current board member. And whether you're a staff member, a board member, a volunteer, a partner, anyone who's joined us, maybe this is your first time this morning meeting Choice. We are so excited that you're here with us, and it's a pleasure to be with you. 2020 has shown the world that the less you have, the greater the danger. But COVID has also brought out courage, innovation, and leadership. Choice continues to be inspired by the numerous individuals who have influenced others out of this circumstance that we faced over the last year. As we gather this morning, this is our first time in over 40 years that our in-country teams are actually joining us virtually. I'd like us to just take a moment to recognize each of those teams. Our biggest strength as a development organization is our in-country teams. They are the boots on the ground. We support our teams as they provide the choice and the means to build self-reliant and resilient communities. They are tremendously skilled in both the areas of technical expertise as well as their ability to work with communities at all levels. Well, 2020 was a year like never before, and the challenges that these teams faced seemed insurmountable. The in-country teams were forced to radically pivot to support people that we serve all over the world. Their collaborative, innovative, and transparent work in the field left a positive impact that not only saved lives, it provided hope and it provided healing. They are resilient and they are committed. Thank you, field teams, for your love and for your dedication to all of the work that you do. We really appreciate it. I'd now like to take a moment to acknowledge all of our devoted sponsors who made this morning possible for all of us. First, doTERRA, Healing Hands Foundation, empowering people worldwide to make positive, sustainable change. Grandeur Peak, Global Advisors, Elevated Global Investing. Farnsworth Ricks, Management and Realty, professional property management that you can count on. VCBO, Architecture, creating environments that invigorate life. And Jane.com, inspiring you and your family to live a stylish life. Every dollar raised today will go to imminent needs in the field because of our generous donors. Thank you for your continued support. Well, my first experience with Choice was in the summer of 2019. With an amazing gift from American Airlines, we were actually able to bring in all of our in-country leaders here to Salt Lake City. And we were able to host our first ever in-country director conference. With my background in leadership development and in organizational effectiveness, I was asked to provide consulting experience on the overall agenda and the content for the week. It was during that time that I was first exposed to the Choice approach and to how we work globally. The work that we do here at Choice is so incredibly unique, but what I found most inspiring that day and that week was the people. The leaders and the extended members that I met with that week are people who dedicate their daily lives to building communities, to building stronger communities all around the world. One specific afternoon, I remember each of the leaders sharing more about the work being done in their country. We asked each of them to keep the presentations to about 20 minutes. And let's just say that that day ran a little bit longer than normal. The dialogue, the questions, it was truly amazing. But it was so inspiring to me personally because I distinctly remember how each country leader displayed this amazing level of pride and passion for the work that they did. I remember with each presentation, the leaders brought into that room all the ideas and the hope and the inspiration that they shared with others just resonated in that space where we were together. So I don't have a picture of me yet on an expedition, but I do have a picture of my family. Our expeditions were put on hold last year, and you'll learn more about that today. My family is an incredibly important element of my life. And so I'm slightly protective about how I use my own time and my energy. Working a full-time job and raising 4 children is no small task. However, after experiencing that in-country director conference, and after learning more about choice, I knew that I wanted to spend some of that finite energy and time to support choice. I wanted to add more value by using my gifts that I could offer. I joined the board later that year, and I had the fortunate opportunity to facilitate the hiring process for our new CEO, Steve Pierce, who some of you will be meeting for the first time later today. We all have a choice in life. How will we spend our energy? And how will we spend our time? For me, choice was the best option to live into my values. I believe in choice, I believe in the work that we do, I believe in our approach to sustaining solutions that are going to end extreme poverty by building self-reliant communities. Now, I'd invite each of you to meet the guests at your table and spend a couple minutes getting to know each other. For those participating live stream, we will be treating you to an inspirational video during that time. We'll resume with the program in just a few minutes, where we'll begin to explore who we are in the field, what we do to expand the range of options in our countries where we serve, and ultimately, how we build self-reliant, resilient communities in our in-country teams. Please enjoy your breakfast.
Do you want to change the world? We do. Over the course of nearly 40 years, Choice Humanitarian has learned that extreme poverty is complex and ultimately rooted in the lack of opportunity and effective community organization. We envision a world in which people everywhere have the choice and the means to live in peace, prosperity, and freedom. Choice Native in-country teams around the world are united in supporting the efforts of vulnerable people to end extreme poverty and build self-reliant, resilient communities. How does that work? Choice Humanitarian works with local leaders in motivated communities to listen to, identify, and address the most pressing concerns of that community. So, if the top priority is water, the Choice team helps the community to organize, mobilize, and execute on creating and sustaining reliable water systems, leveraging both resources from within that country and generous donations from abroad. Take, for example, Sophia. She spends 4 hours of every day walking to obtain clean water. That's half your workday. This adds up. If there was a more efficient way to obtain that water, imagine what she could do with that extra time. This is the reality for women in poverty all around the world. But it doesn't have to be. Once communities recognize their potential, they come together to solve problems and are able to create their own path out of poverty. These communities are then able to repeat this process even in the midst of disaster. Whether it be an earthquake or a global pandemic, Choice communities are better equipped to cope with crises. With the outbreak of COVID-19, communities faced a new set of urgent challenges. Thanks to their local knowledge and strong relationships, Choice in-country teams were ready to connect them with the resources they needed to withstand the pandemic. The goal of ending extreme poverty is bigger than just Choice Humanitarian, which is why we bring together a global community of changemakers, united in the fight to end poverty. With the support of a global community, Choice is able to collaborate with partners to find innovative solutions to some of the world's most daunting challenges. So, do you want to change the world? You can. Join Choice Humanitarian today in the fight to end poverty.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Pierce, and I am the CEO of Choice Humanitarian. She was a plant. This is so cool. It is so great to see you all here, and I'm so grateful that you decided to join us this morning. It's been a long time coming. This breakfast was originally scheduled for April of last year, and we're so pleased that we are able to do it today. I want to, before I get going and get all mushy, I do want to recognize somebody. Kelly Martin, who just closed that door in the back. Kelly Martin is the best events coordinator in the world, and actually the only person who I'm very afraid of. So I'm going to keep to my 13 minutes today. This is also, as Bethany mentioned, the first time that we are live streaming a live event. Our gala last year, as you may remember, was all virtual. This is the first hybrid event that we've done. And it's such an amazing technology that we have in a way that was kind of ushered in by COVID. We all, I think, found ways of making better use of technology. And so a special warm welcome to all of our Choice family who's looking at us, who's joining us from around the world. I'm also reminded of another first. The very first time that I was asked to present the findings from my dissertation research as a young graduate student. I was so honored to be asked to participate by the Latin American Studies Association. Well, right up until the time that I found out I was a replacement for the replacement. But it was still a great honor. And so on the morning of the event, I got to the conference center very early to find the room that my panel was going to take place in. I located the room, I sat down, and waited for the current session to end. About 15 minutes before the hour, all of the participants filed out, and I went in and found my place at the table at the front of the room, had all my materials ready to go, and sat there and waited, and waited. About 10 minutes before the session was scheduled to start, still nobody in the room. 5 minutes before the session to start, nobody in the room. Finally, about 1 minute before the session's scheduled to start, a single gentleman came in and sat down at the front of the room. So at that point, the session was supposed to start. I figured that I had three options. One, I could hide my shame and collect my materials and walk out. Option two was I could give a shortened version of my presentation and then walk out. Option three was to give the presentation as I had prepared it and then walk out. I chose option three. Sat down and spoke to the gentleman in front of me, gave my entire presentation, then hurried up and packed up my materials and started walking out. And as I was about to hit the door, the gentleman behind me says in Spanish, "So where do you think you're going?" And I said, "Well, I finished my presentation, I'm going to leave." And he says, "No, you're not. I'm the other person on the panel. I listened to you, and now you're going to listen to me." Going forward. So we entertained ourselves that way. This is a full room, and I'm so happy that it is, and so grateful that you're here. During the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you a few things about Choice, what we've been up to the past year, where I think we're headed, and why I feel that Choice is such a critical organization in today's changing and challenging environment. I'm frequently asked how and why I chose this particular career path, and more recently, why I chose to join Choice after years of working for USAID, widely considered the premier development agency in the world. Let me tell you first why I chose international development as a career. Basically, as I look over the arc of my career, there were three moments that were determinative for me. The first moment I'm going to call my awakening. I woke up to the harsh reality of poverty, inequality, and suffering during the Ethiopian famine. Probably about half of this audience is too young to remember the Ethiopian famines, but about 1 million men, women, and children perished during that famine. I couldn't reconcile the plenty to which I had grown accustomed with the suffering of others. It seemed that something was very definitely out of whack. I also learned that most suffering in the world is entirely preventable. Think about that. Most of the poverty, the conflict, even some of the extreme weather events are entirely preventable. Still, and more perplexing to me, and this question dogs me to this day, why was I so blessed when so many others struggle to feed themselves and their families? Today, still, about 1 billion people go to bed hungry every single night. I'm going to call this second moment understanding. For me, this occurred while I was a student studying at the UNAM in Mexico City. In Mexico, all university students are required to do social service. And so I volunteered to work at a place called La Colonia de los Pepenedores. The colonia is essentially a town built on top of a trash dump, where people make their living sifting through the newly delivered garbage every day for things of value, mostly glass and paper and metal. It was at this time that I understood what people would do, what people must do to care for their families. And I also came to understand that while intelligence and creativity and drive and innovation is distributed equally around the world, opportunity is not. By no fault of their own, people are born into varying situations. Some of them are very challenging situations. Most of the causes of poverty are structural and not of their own making. That leads me to the third moment, and that's the moment that I committed to do something about it. For me, this happened when I returned from my Fulbright experience. I still needed 3 credit hours to graduate. I selected a course, because it didn't matter which one, that met on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I wasn't working, and it was a course called Development Management. I had no idea what that was, but it was taught by one Professor James B. Mayfield, sitting right over there. The concepts that Professor Mayfield taught us spoke to me like nothing had ever before. And at that point, I committed to a career in international development. Adios, law school. My poor bride, she thought she was marrying an attorney, and life was going to be really, really good. Instead, a year later, equipped with a master's degree and a whole bunch of want to, Stephanie and I boarded a plane for Bolivia, and my very first job with the Fundación Andina para la Niñez, later to become Choice Humanitarian. So then why leave USAID for Choice Humanitarian? For me, the decision was difficult, not going to lie, but it was also obvious. And the first element that drew me to Choice was the on-the-ground capacity of the Choice country teams to support change at the local level. Choice staff in our 8 presence countries are exceptional, and in that regard, Choice is truly on the cutting edge. Choice works in some of the most remote and underserved regions of the countries in which we operate. And because the Choice professionals who make up our country teams are native to those countries, they speak all of the local languages and are intimately familiar with the local operate environment. This, along with their excellent technical skills, make them uniquely qualified to partner with local communities to help them find a path out of poverty. Another aspect of the organization that intrigued me came as somewhat of a surprise. Choice and the Choice community, many of you here in this room and watching around the world, are bridging immense social and cultural divides. This happens by bringing people together from vastly different backgrounds. And in a world that is divided in so many ways as ours is today, this may be one of the most important gifts that Choice offers the world. So here we are, after one of the most challenging years on record. 2020 was indeed tough on all of us. And every time I'm reminded of that, I see us today shaking hands, giving hugs. We can see your faces now. I'm reminded that this is not the case for most of the people we serve. I just came back from Guatemala. In Guatemala, the vaccination rate is 0.01%. They may not be fully vaccinated until 2023. Right? So while we're here and we're able to enjoy the benefits of science and renew our friendships, most of the people in the world are still struggling to cope with the virus. And there's new variants breaking out all the time. I'm so humbled by the dedication and sacrifice and the creativity of our staff around the world and here at headquarters. So many things have changed, but our desire to serve those in need has not. And while our very survival was threatened as we lost nearly 2/3 of our revenue streams last year when the pandemic hit, I sincerely feel that in spite of these challenges, or maybe because of them, Choice is now stronger than ever before. 3 things jump out at me that we learned last year. First, crises have a funny way of sharpening our focus. We're now dialed in like a laser on those things that really matter and that truly advance our mission. We learned to be more effective than ever working remotely and learning how to use technology to our advantage. More on that later. And we learned that the path out of poverty often passes through resilience on the way to self-reliance. We understand now more than ever that by applying a systems approach, we can better understand the drivers of poverty and focus on those things that bring about true systemic change. We want to be problem-driven. In Choice, we don't have canned solutions looking for problems. We start with the problem. And in one of the most wonderful yet unexpected twists of fate, we opened up a new program in the United States on Navajo Nation. Against all logic, we expanded while in the midst of cutbacks and streamlining. More on that later too. So where's Choice going in the next 5 years? What does Choice 2.0 look like? I want to recognize that over the past 30 years, as a global community, we've made great progress. Millions have found a way out of poverty. Most deadly diseases have been eradicated, and educational levels, especially for girls, are rising steadily. Choice has played an important role in that progress, and I think we can be proud of our contribution since our founding nearly 4 decades ago. And why we should feel good about that progress. Global trends are even now threatening all the progress that has been made to date. Things like extreme weather events, pandemics, conflict, the fragility of the global economy and our dependence on the global economy, and the lack of access by most to game-changing technology. These are all threatening the gains that we've made and pose immense challenges to the people that we serve. And as we look ahead, we need to not only understand the problems facing these communities today, but we need to be mindful of the challenges that will face them in the future. How will we help them respond to these megatrends that will certainly influence and shape their futures? One way to help communities survive, as I mentioned before, is helping them to build resilience. This could be by achieving food security or through better health education, as we did when the pandemic broke out last year. Another priority is to work on closing the inequality gap around technology. Some people call this the digital divide. In most areas of the world, fewer and fewer people have access to technology, and they're accumulating more and more wealth. and more people, even in this country, are being left behind. Accessing technology that will allow even isolated and forgotten populations that we serve to benefit through the advantages of the global marketplace. Just one quick example. We're launching a pilot where we're partnering with the Joy Fund to bring a computer lab to a very remote area of Bolivia. Thanks to this new technology, community members will be able to further their education and plug into the global marketplace to sell their handicrafts. Just imagine the opportunities that open up to rural, isolated communities when they have access to technology. Over the next 5 years, we will increase by 5 times the number of people that we currently serve. But to do so, we're really going to have to up our game. And we're going to do that by making sure that our country teams have all of the relevant skills and tools that they need, by upgrading our financial and data management systems to achieve extreme transparency and accountability, and by being much smarter about the way that we use technology. We kicked off a 5-year strategic plan with a new vision and mission. Think of the vision as kind of the what, and the mission as the how. And both of these things are reflected in our values. And now I invite you to see if you can find yourself in these goals and values as part of the Global Choice family. I'm frequently asked by donors and others to explain how Choice works. What is our approach to poverty reduction? Depending on the audience, I might offer some technical mumbo-jumbo, oh, well, we use problem-driven collaborative approach to systems change to address the many dimensions of multidimensional poverty. That's accurate, but it doesn't really capture the essence of what we do. When you boil it all right down to the core, what Choice really does, what you all allow us to do, is expand the range of options and opportunities that are available to poor people. In describing this process, we're very particular about the words that we use, especially the prepositions. We try and do things, and we try and not do things to people or for people. Instead, we work really hard to do things with and ultimately through the communities and the families that we serve. Prepositions matter. They're not merely words. The opportunity for Choice to expand operations to the US and to the Navajo Nation came through a chance encounter with Jonathan and Lauren Campbell at a really fun event at Wheeler Machinery. If you haven't been to that event, try to go. You get to drive big, huge machines and just push dirt all over the place. It's really, really fun for a fee. Jonathan at that time shared with me that in the midst of this pandemic, how important would it be for the company to have an opportunity to serve domestic populations. And a week before, we had just been approached by representatives from the coalition of Navajo organizations called the Navajo Thaw to see if we could share our community development approach with local organizations in the former Bennett Freeze area. And the rest, as they say, is history. One of the many things we've learned since beginning to work on Navajo Nation is the principle of Hotso. In the Dene language, it translates roughly to living in peace, balance, beauty, and harmony. This is what we seek for all people.
Yat Shea Maryland Radian Shia Ado Zitla Dilni Dien in the Anshla Do Kia Ani Bashichin Do Zitla Jenny Shashina. Hello, my name is Marilyn, and I'm the in-country director for Navajo Nation. Living on the Navajo Nation, it can be really a challenge. If you live on the outskirts of Cameron, you most likely don't have any electricity or water. And a lot of people just live in really poor situations. The former Bennett freeze came into being about 1966. There was litigation happening between the Hopi tribe and the Navajo tribe over land. A federal judge froze the land, put a moratorium on the land until both tribes could come to an agreement on land use. And so it covered 9 chapters of the Navajo Nation. If you wanted to improve your home, you had to go through your chapter and then through the Hopi tribe. And both of those entities had to agree that you could fix something. 9 times out of 10, it didn't go through. The closure of the Bennett freeze, which became the former Bennett freeze, happened in 2009. But before that, there was just so much push from the Navajo Nation that this moratorium be lifted, so that those of us that were living in that area could begin to make improvements and, really focus on economic development and begin to just wake up.
These are the tomatoes I have, and they are coming along pretty well. There's just a real need on the Navajo Nation for food, and because there's just a real scarcity of like grocery stores and places where people could go to buy food.
27,000 square miles of area, there are only 13 grocery stores. It's just not enough for that amount of land and that amount of people.
One of the main reasons that we have the hoop house in place is so that we can be able to have the people really learn about how they can grow their food and store their food, and in times of need they can basically rely on themselves. There's some more growing throughout the little bush. I want to get them to grow up as high as they can, so they're doing really good doing that. I'm just kind of helping them along.
The food security project that Choice Humanitarian is doing on the Navajo Nation stemmed mainly from the food relief that was done in late October and early November. These people were really struggling during the pandemic. The food boxes that we provided had fresh fruit in it, and it really did help a lot of them. We were able to distribute over 360 boxes of food. We took the boxes to the homes. They were 30 pounds of food in a box that could last about 2 weeks. A lot of the elderly, the handicapped, and disabled, couldn't make it to the distribution sites, or a lot of if they were too poor and didn't have enough gas to go to Tuba City. A lot of the elderly were so grateful. They were so grateful, and they were happy to get the food. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten any.
How did you feel?
Well, I'm thankful for it. I appreciate whatever they bring, like flour, potatoes. That's the main thing that we like to eat. Make the tea and fry bread, no matter what.
Yeah.
The potential for the Navajo people is unlimited.
The whole goal of what we're doing is trying to see how we can help people not only grow their own food, but also to see if there is any possibility of them becoming entrepreneurs in food agriculture. There's just such an unlimited amount of potential. So we just need to figure out a way to help them out, and that's what Choice Humanitarian is really aiming to do.
it's exciting, I guess I want to say, because people are trying something new and it gives them hope.
So that spirit of farming is part of the Navajo spirit that you may be feeling right now. In the words of one of our Navajo partners, she said, "It will lead to food security and help heal the wounds inflicted on this people for over 300 years. By joining us this morning, it's clear that you're already somewhere on the awakening, understanding, commitment continuum. We invite you to continue this journey with choice. Thank you very much. So let me now welcome to the stage another one of our fantastic board members, Bret Backman.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning. As Steve mentioned, I'm Bret Backman. I'm a member of the Choice Board of Directors, and I also have been working as a volunteer helping to oversee finances and systems for Choice. Today I've been asked to present our 2021 Corporate Impact Award. Each year this award recognizes a corporate partner that has really gone above and beyond in supporting Choice and its programs. Christopherson Business Travel has been a committed partner of Choice Humanitarian for more than 20 years. In fact, as I was talking to Josh, I think it's like 23, 24 years. In addition to encouraging voluntary employee contributions and providing a 2-to-1 match to those contributions, Christopherson also sends a group of employees on a week-long humanitarian expedition every year. They firmly believe in sharing the wealth and taking care of the global community. Christopherson also offers travel services to our expeditioners. For any of you who have gone on expeditions, through their CV Humanitarian Travel, helping to get the best prices for our travelers and also returning part of the proceeds to Choice. And while this is a corporate award, we also want to recognize the people behind the Christopherson name. Mike and Camille Cameron, their families, and their expanded family of employees. So Mike, will you please join me on the stage? So please join me in recognizing Christopherson Business Travel as our 2021 Corporate Impact Award.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent. 25 years ago, myself, my brother Mark, who is here somewhere, our brother Matt, our 3 oldest sons, and our father went on a Choice Humanitarian expedition. We went to a small village in central Mexico called Cañada de la Muerte. I believe for those of you that know Spanish, that means Canyon of Death. And we were tasked with building a small medical clinic for their village. We were greeted by the mayor, a man by the name of Augustine. He was also the town blacksmith. And when we showed up to work the first day to start on the footings and foundation, he was the head of the architectural committee. We then went to church on Sunday to a small Catholic chapel in the village, and he was the priest conducting the meeting. And then a number of years ago, our family got to go back to Cañada de la Muerte and bring our children with us and meet him and reconnect with him. And he had a photo album on his kitchen table that he pulled out and showed us the pictures of the expedition and remembered us well, and it was a great experience. After that opportunity, we got hooked. Our family got hooked on the mission and the model of Choice Humanitarian. We have done all sorts of things over the last 25 years with the organization. All of my children, my oldest grandchildren, my wife and I have all been on Choice Humanitarian expeditions to, I think, all but 2 of the countries. My brother Mark, I think, has the record. He's been on 15 expeditions. He led 13 of those, and 2 of those were with our employees that Brent was talking about that we on the annual trips that we do every year. And our daughter, Jalissa, did an internship in Nepal with Bishnu and lived with Bishnu, as well as, I believe, Leah's son, there's Bishnu, and spent 6 months in Nepal. We've had all sorts of opportunities to be blessed as a family by serving and participating with Choice. We, too, as a company, have had a lot of opportunities, and I think Brent described most of the things that we're doing, but there is no better way for your employees to build relationships than to go on a company expedition or a family expedition. There's no better way. Some of our employees that are here today have been on expeditions. Most of our executive team that's here today have been on expeditions, and it's an amazing way to benefit the world and benefit the people that you're associated with at the same time. I had I want to just share one of the most memorable experiences that I had on an expedition. We were, I believe it was about 15 years ago, we were bringing a water system into a small village in the Altiplano in Bolivia, high up in the Andes Mountains, and we were there with most of my family, my brother Mark and most of his family, Todd Heiner, who is here somewhere, and most of his family, right there's Todd, and we all got to spend a week together building a water system. And the most amazing thing about that journey was at the end of the week that we brought this water to the homes inside this village. They had lived in this village for generations that had never had running water. They spent a big part of their day just going to bring water to their village every day in buckets. And at the end, we got to do a little ceremonial process where we went around to each home and watched the villagers turn on the faucet in front of their home for the first time in generations of history and see running water come out of a faucet. It was a miraculous thing and a really cool thing to do. For me personally, my personal why, I can't, Steve talked about the 1 billion people that go to bed hungry every night. As a father and a grandfather, I can't imagine anything. It's incomprehensible to me to be a father or a grandfather and watch your children or grandchildren go to bed hungry. And if we can do some small thing to help eradicate that extreme poverty, then I'm in. We've been in for 25 years. I'll be in for the next 25 years. I can only commit to that because I think that will be about the end of my life. Then I'm going to be relying on my son Josh, who, by the way, is the chairman of the board right now as a volunteer, to carry it from there. Closing, I just want to read a quote from my granddaughter who went to Guatemala on an expedition. I thought I was going to help end poverty and change the lives of people, but in the end, they changed mine. They taught me how to be happy. They taught me how happy you can be with very little. We all have an opportunity to come together and learn from each other. Alyssa Murray. Thank you.
A true corporate partner indeed. All right, now please join me in welcoming to the stage Jen Dyer, Choice's Director of Community and Corporate Impact. Jen.
Good morning. Not many of you know me, but the few that do know that I'm a crier. And I'm an ugly crier, so bear with me. Thank you, Bret. I've known Bret for 8 years, and Bret is initially one of the reasons why I knew Choice may be a good fit for me. His integrity is unmatched, and grateful that he didn't even know I was applying for the job, but he was one of the reasons why I took the first step. And thank you, Mike, for sharing that story. What an amazing story to experience families receiving water for the first time. Our team is incredible. I've been with Choice for just about 2 months, so probably, unless today's the first you've heard of Choice, you know more about it than I do. Drinking from a fire hose. I'd like to just take a moment and share a little bit about myself. I am a truth seeker. I have a deep desire to know and understand the truth of multidimensional poverty. One truth I have come to understand is that we must, as a human race, understand and combat poverty from the bottom up, the roots of the problems, not simply the manifestations, which is what we often see in the images. Another truth is that Choice supports communities along their path out of poverty. The work our in-country teams do is who we are. Secondly, I've been gifted with a servant's heart. To me, a servant's heart comes from a willingness to serve and love people as they are, where they are, with no strings attached. I would imagine most, if not all of you, also have a servant's heart. Christopherson Business Travel, as well as so many others in this room, are great examples. Thank you. Let's explore together a few ways to put our servants' hearts into action. One of my favorite roles at Choice are our in-country director calls. Each week we spend a couple of hours with a country director to discuss their projects, programs, families, and development. We ask them what their most pressing needs are. I have been moved to tears, imagine that, by some of their servants' heart responses. I'd like to just share a few of the truths with you that our directors have shared with us. Willie in Bolivia and his team worked hard to set funds aside so that they could continue to fund projects for months to come. Due to COVID and lack of funding, their reserved funds were quickly depleted. Willie has requested additional funds so that they can continue to fund these life-altering projects in the villages they serve. Every director, without fail, each week, talks about funding as being one of their most pressing needs. Wilmer in Peru and Arroyo in Kenya have both shared their desperate need for a vehicle. Imagine that, a vehicle. Their villages they work are remote and far apart from each other. A vehicle would not only make their time more efficient, but would also allow them to access their village more frequently, and in turn provide greater opportunities for those they serve. Marilyn on Navajo, who you got to meet today and is one of my favorite people, shared her desperate support for the people in a variety of ways, their desperate need for support in a variety of ways, including housing, water projects, and the next part of our current program, Women Ascend, which is a program that seeks to address the poverty issues through female employment and leadership opportunities. Marilyn demonstrates through word and deed her servant's heart. The needs remain great for the Navajo people. Pratik in Nepal listed their pressing needs in this order: peace, an end to COVID, and generous funding. I add all those to the top of my list with you, Pratik. Raquel in Ecuador, Olher in Guatemala, and Juan in Mexico have also shared their needs with us, and they are equally important and great. I wish you could just join me on one of our weekly calls. I'm sure, like me, you'd have a desire to support any way you can and help fund all of their needs. Help Choice take the next step. Our most comprehensive representation of Choice's work was compiled in our 2020 annual report, which you can find on our website, as well as the QR code in your printed program. The Choice by the Number section shows the magnitude of our work. This was just in 2020. 122 active projects, $1.6 million in leveraged funds, and 686,370 lives touched. Let's work together. Become a full force multiplier with us today. Here's how. First, the Village Monthly Giving Program is a global community of change makers and humanitarians working together to offer support to those we serve. If you aren't currently a member, please consider signing up today. Decide how your first month's contribution might be a little bit special from the rest. Currently, there are approximately 270 members of the Village. Just over $100,000 was donated by this global community in 2020, thanks to an average contribution of $30 a month. Let's pause for a moment and let that sink in. 270 change makers. During a worldwide pandemic, raised over $100,000 last year. A small monthly gift of $10, $25, or $100 goes a long way towards our mission and vision. It literally takes a village to keep the programs and projects going in country. Let's double this number. If everyone in this room signed up today, imagine the impact that our small but mighty group could have. Another possible way for you to get involved is to donate. We are thrilled to announce today that we have a $10,000 match. Any money, funds, donations raised today will be matched up to $10,000 by a generous donor who's with us this morning. Many of you in this room have the ability to make a huge one-time donation that would create impact around the world. One of the many strengths of Choice is our ability to leverage every dollar donated. We leverage donor dollars by utilizing community resources and identifying similar partners to support programs. Your donation can be multiplied 3, 4, or even 5 times. This creates exponential impact in the countries where we work. Next, join an expedition. Just by raise of hands, who's been on an expedition in this room? Raise them high so that everybody can see. So the grand majority, that's amazing. I look forward to the day where I get to participate in one of our expeditions. They are equal parts adventure, education, and humanitarian service. Our approach to expeditions is to make sure the development projects that we work on with our in-country teams are sustainable. Each village plans specific projects according to their unique needs and priorities. I can try to share the magnitude of the work. I can tell you about it, I can describe it, and I can show you pictures. But until you experience it for yourself and you know the work as part of your truth, you can't fully comprehend the impact of Choice Humanitarian and what your donation provides. We are so excited to relaunch our expedition program after a long, hard year. Sign up today and put your $300 deposit. Yes, let's clap. I agree. Yay. If an expedition is something you're interested in, you can put your $300 deposit down and get on the top of the list. As you can imagine, people are very anxious to get back out in the field. The fourth way to get involved is to become a partner. Choice could not do the work we do without the support of our partners. The impact of these partners created sustainable, systemic change at the root causes of poverty, and will continue to do so. Our partners participate in a variety of ways, from payroll giving to corporate expeditions, employee matching to hosting events, and supporting projects in country. Please consider how uniting with Choice to create a social impact program within your company might bring productivity, connectivity, and positive change to your teams. And last but certainly not least is to become a volunteer. We are kicking our volunteer program into high gear. If you have a desire to contribute your skills and expertise to support the villages and communities where we work, please consider signing up to volunteer. As we sit here today in relative peace and prosperity, I'd like to remind us all, as Steve mentioned, that things seem to be improving for some of us. The situation continues to be as grave as ever for the families and communities we serve. I've seen it. COVID-19 continues to drastically affect individuals around the world. In the few months that I've been with Choice, I have heard stories from the field that would bring you to your knees. Choice Humanitarian and the Choice family, of which you are now a part, exist to help expand the range of opportunities available for these people, our brothers and sisters. You each have a pledge form at your seat, as well as the option to scan a QR code. If you've experienced your awakening, understanding, or a commitment moment today, please put your servant's heart into action. You can easily donate today via credit card or see one of our team members to make your donation. Every dollar counts. Every donation is significant to the individual who is being positively impacted by your generosity. I hold on to hope that one day, somehow, the plague of poverty will indeed be eliminated. Choice is how I will make my mark in this endeavor. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you to all those who have tuned in virtually. And thank you to our teams for being with us this morning. We are here to support you. Please feel free to stay, and I certainly would love to meet every single one of you. So thank you all for being here.